Hi, I'm Andy. See this pretty girl? Do you think this is my twin sister? Nope, that's me. Something happened to me because of my dressing up hobby. It all began when my sister Sheila asked me to pretend to be her so that I could pass her exams for her. I won't have any time to prepare. I'm dating a cool guy and spend all my time with him. Sheila handed me her dress and batted her eyes innocently. She sure had some nerve. So she would be hanging out with her boyfriend while I would be cramming and dressing up weirdly? Of course, I refused. But Sheila didn't give up. A week later, I found a ticket for a Dua Lipa concert on my desk. I had been asking my parents for such a gift for a long time, so I immediately thought it was from them. But they said that they hadn't bought me anything. Wow, Sheila, she had decided to bribe me. I went into my sister's room to give the ticket back. But then I saw a delivery service bag on her bed. Sheila had found a job to get me that ticket. My anger disappeared, and I decided to help my sister. Moreover, it was a piece of cake for me. I waited for Sheila and agreed to pretend to be a girl, but only for one day. She was over the moon. She put her dress and makeup on and gave me a wig. I went to her college looking like that. I nailed the exam. Pleased with myself, I was planning to go home and take off those girly rags as soon as possible. But my sister's friend Molly caught up to me in the hall. I had seen her a couple of times in Sheila's Instagram photos. Molly asked me which question I had got. I didn't want her to hear my voice, so I clutched my throat, coughed, and croaked out an answer. Molly carefully touched my forehead with her lips to see if I had a fever and dragged me to the canteen to drink hot tea. You'll be fine in no time. We're going shopping today, remember? Molly chatted without a pause and told me all the gossip about her and Sheila's classmates. But it wasn't annoying. It was the opposite. I could have listened to her for hours. Well, you've probably guessed already. I ended up liking Molly so much that at home, I asked my sister to lend me her dress one more evening so that I could go shopping with her friend. But Sheila had said no. That's it, Andy. Thanks for your help, but you've done enough. I'll meet her myself. I couldn't miss such an opportunity, so I decided to do something that many of you would definitely not approve of. I went down to the living room and told the whole truth about my sister's exams to our parents. They got very angry and punished Sheila severely. Because of me, she was grounded and wasn't even allowed to use gadgets. So she couldn't warn Molly that she wouldn't be going anywhere. While Sheila was arguing with our parents, I stole her dress, the wig, and makeup from her room. An hour later, Molly and I met at the mall. When we came to the first fitting room, I realized that my efforts hadn't been in vain. Molly put on a bikini and showed it to me. Well, what do you think? Sheila? I didn't know what Sheila would have said, but I was absolutely delighted. I smiled stupidly and gave her a thumbs up without taking my eyes off of her. That evening, Molly and I visited the boutiques at the mall. She tried something on each of them and asked me to tell her if it suited her. A couple of times I even zipped her clothes up. It was little wonder that I came back home in a great mood. However, my sister was sitting there waiting for me. Tomorrow I'll tell Molly everything and she won't see you again. Did you think she would scare me? I had a better trump card. Well then, I'll tell your dean who actually got perfect marks for the exam. Although Molly likes to gossip so much, she'll do all the work for me. Sheila threw an apple at me and stormed off to her room. I decided to chat with Molly, but this time as myself. I liked all her photos and sent her a friend request. But for some reason, she didn't accept it. I decided to get to know her in real life, and the next day, I came up to her near the college. Molly didn't act the same way around me as she had around Sheila. She didn't listen to what I was saying and hardly looked up from her phone. But I knew how to get her attention. At home, I took Sheila's phone from her parents and asked her to type in the password. She was too afraid I would expose her to object. So I calmly invited Molly to a club using Sheila's account, changed into a dress, and left. The club was very noisy, and Molly was constantly leaning close to me to shout something in my ear. We spent the evening hanging out at the bar and dancing. But then, the DJ turned on slow music. While I was thinking about what to do, some guy asked Molly to dance. I slipped my cocktail and glared at the couple. At first, they were just spinning around the dance floor, but then the guy started to press closer and closer to Molly. She winced and tried to pull away. When he leaned in to kiss her cheek, I couldn't stand it any longer. I pushed him away, took Molly's hand, and dragged her out of the club. Once we were outside, she hugged me. Thank you, Sheila. I was so scared. You've been so brave lately. It's all thanks to my brother. Andy is teaching me self-defense. That's weird. You said he was a creep and you barely talked to each other. Well, Sheila. She managed to mess with my plan after all. To convince Molly, I started to praise myself as much as I could. I didn't know if she would believe me or not, but I didn't want something like that to happen again. So, in the evening, I forbade Sheila from seeing her friend until I started dating her. Besides, it was easy. Holidays were coming up, so Molly would no longer have to go to college. Sheila burst into tears and called me a tyrant. But I didn't feel sorry for her. After all, she had started that masquerade herself. The plan worked. That evening, Molly accepted my friend request, and we got to talking. I decided not to waste any time, and in the morning, invited Molly to lunch at the cafe. Using my sister's phone again, we chatted a lot as usual, and I sat opposite her and admired her. At one point, she leaned closer to me and lowered her voice to tell me yet another secret of some girl. I forgot that I was in a stupid wig and dress and kissed her. Molly sprang up and spilled her coffee at me. "Are you crazy?" I laughed and was about to take off my wig, but then something completely unexpected happened. A policeman came up to me and asked, "Sheila Young?" I realized that it wasn't the best moment for confessions and nodded. The cop handcuffed me and led me to his car. Molly ran after us, asking questions, but the policeman did not answer any of them. They brought me to a police station and handed me a document. It was a complaint about my sister, filed by some guy called Walter. He accused his ex-girlfriend of breaking into his house after they fought and trashing the place. It was clearly some kind of mistake. Sheila couldn't have done something like that. A guy walked into the office. It was Walter. Without even looking in my direction, he said to the policeman, "I don't need her to compensate the damages. Just punish her. Severely." He had gone too far. I grabbed my wig to pull it off and tell the truth, but then I heard Sheila's voice outside the door. I imagined how surprised the cops and Walter would be if they saw two identical girls. But it wasn't Sheila who came into the office. It was her twin brother, Andy. My sister had put on clothes and put her hair under a cap. She was holding my ID. Sheila convinced the policeman to leave us alone, and everyone had left. She grabbed my hand and whispered, "Andy, please don't turn me in. I found out that Walter was cheating on me. I started having panic attacks after what happened. I even started to stutter a little. You know, because we haven't talked that much lately. Please cover for me. I won't be able to handle the punishment." Sheila was shaking and was as white as snow. I felt sorry for my sister and promised to take all the blame. The punishment was not as harsh as I'd expected. I got 2 months of community service. I worked looking like Sheila so that nobody would realize who I was. Molly bombarded me with questions about her friend, but I didn't reply to her messages. After all, I knew she loved to gossip, and that could have disrupted our whole plan. On the first day, I was told to paint a fence near Sheila's college. I was hoping Molly wouldn't show up there during the holidays, but for some reason, she went to college, and on my way back, she saw me, or Sheila to be more precise. "How are you? I saw you kissing Walter in the car in the parking lot." "What do you mean, Walter? They broke up." Molly raised her eyebrows in surprise. I finally realized what had happened. Sheila had tricked me like a kid. She had got fed up with my threats and decided not just to take revenge on me, but also to get rid of me for 2 whole months. She looked pitiful, lied about panic attacks, and I bought it. And she kept dating her boyfriend like nothing happened. It was pointless to keep lying. I took off my wig. Molly cried out with surprise and covered her face with her hands. I told her my story from the beginning. Molly was a bit offended that I thought she was a horrible gossip and promised she wouldn't tell anyone. After she left, I kept painting the fence, but it didn't end well. In the evening, I rushed home in a panic and shouted to Sheila, "Hurry up! You need to get out of this country right now!" I took off the woman's clothes and started shoving my sister's things into a suitcase. Sheila asked, startled, what had happened, and I told her a terrible story. I was painting a fence as part of my community service and accidentally spilled the paint over someone's car. A guy got out of it and started threatening to me. I was rude to him, and he grabbed a baseball bat and chased me almost all the way home. After that, he shouted that he would search the whole city to find me. I mean, you. Sheila didn't have time to say anything. We heard a crash downstairs. Someone was kicking in the front door. I grabbed the first thing I saw, a vase, and tiptoed downstairs with Sheila. I stood to the left of the door, raised the vase over my head, but did not have the time to react. The guy with the bat burst into our house and glared at my sister. "Well, midget, you're going to get it now!" Swinging the bat, he started approaching Sheila. I dropped the vase and ran out of the house. Through the window, I saw that Sheila had fallen down the first floor, was shaking and covering her head with her hands. Well, that was it. Maybe she'd had enough. I walked back into the house. The bandit lowered the bat and laughed. "Okay, pause. It's time to let you in on my plan." Of course, after Sheila had made me work for 2 months, I couldn't help but take revenge on her. After Molly had left, I called my friend Ethan. He wanted to become an actor and could play the role of the bandit who had gone off the rails like no one else. We decided to stage a home performance for a single spectator. I gave Ethan a high five and laughed too. "Well, sister, where's the applause? Not gonna mock me now, are you?" But for some reason, Sheila didn't get up. I helped her up and sat down on the sofa. She was trying to say something but was crying so hard that she couldn't. I had probably gone a bit too far. I asked Ethan to leave and brought Sheila some water. When she spoke, I was the one who started shaking with fear. You idiot! I wasn't mocking you! Everything was real! I just decided to forgive Walter and made up with him. I was such a moron. Sheila hadn't been taking revenge on me. She was really suffering from panic attacks and stuttering, and I'd only made everything worse. I tried everything Google suggested against stuttering. I gave Sheila a facial massage, ran to the pharmacy for some herbs to brew some home tea, and even tried to scare my sister again. But none of it helped. When her parents returned home, I told them the truth about everything. You can't imagine how mad they were. They immediately dragged Sheila to the doctor. He prescribed her physiotherapy and suggested we go to a psychologist. Because of the stress, my sister had started having problems with nerves. She spent whole days at the clinic and returned home late last night, looking sad and tired. I was so ashamed of myself. I sold the tickets to the Dua Lipa concert and bought Sheila a PlayStation she had been dreaming about for a long time. I met Walter on the way home. He was holding some girl's hand. I don't know where I got the strength from, but I did something that I would have never dared to do before. I pushed that big guy down so he fell over. I didn't recognize my own voice when I said, "If I see you next to my sister again, my lawyer will take you to court. Trust me, we'll prove you're the reason Sheila has health issues." Of course, I didn't have a lawyer. Otherwise, I wouldn't have had to paint fences wearing girly clothes. But I looked so convincing that Walter blocked Sheila on all social medias and deleted her number while I watched. At home, I gave my sister the console and told her I was sorry. I also promised to take all the exams for her if she wanted me to. But Sheila said, no more dressing up. It only ever caused problems. We laughed and she held out her pinky to me. All right, we're cool. Have you noticed? I hardly stutter anymore. Before I can answer, someone rang the doorbell. It was Ethan. I invited him to my room for a chat, but he said that he didn't come to see me. My friend handed Sheila a bucket of ice cream and settled down next to her on the couch. It turned out Ethan had been visiting my sister every day while I had been doing community service. Soon, my love life got better as well. Molly and I became a couple. Press like if you have a sister too. Let's see how many of us are out there.